Hey guys, what's going on? This is Chris Harris, and welcome back to the Collar and Elbow Wrestling Podcast, where me and Kenny Oak break down specifics about professional wrestling. Today's going to be episode number 4, and is our second topic conversation where we talk about the specifics within professional wrestling. Today we'll be talking about finishing moves. Ken, you ready to break this one down?
Yeah, so let's talk about freaking finishers. That's something just that we can talk forever about.
There's
all kinds.
This is one of those where I don't think I can make a list and properly put them in order because there's so many variables to this one.
Well, and there's also the talk about like what happens to finishers. Like they've become very less impactful nowadays with this infusion of, like you call them, indie fucks.
Yes.
They're really killing the finisher because that's a big thing on the indie scenes is kicking out of finishers multiple times.
It's not. It almost demeans the word finisher at that point because it does nothing to finish a match anymore. All it does is draw a longer 2 count. So
the only time a finisher should be kicked out of is like we'll talk about in our top wrestlers show is freaking when Shawn Michaels and HBK at WrestleMania 25, like a big match like that where they're kicking out of finishers. That's the only time it's acceptable. And you've had other people talk about this. Like Stone Cold talks about it all the time.
Stone Cold gets upset that people kick out of the DDT too. He feels that Jake okay. Roberts. I don't know if that's the best example, but he doesn't like that people use the DDT as a regular move now, because it used to be a finisher. So I kind of get his point, but he takes it a bit to the extreme.
Well, it's the same thing with the super kick. Sorry for the indie fuck marks out there, but do not like the Young Bucks and their stupid super kick party that just completely demeans one of my favorite finishers of all time, the super kick. Even someone that, I love, like Dolph Ziggler, who uses it way too much. But at least he got a pin off of it that one time. But other than that, that's how it should be. You hit someone with the super kick. Kevin Owens does it too. Pisses me off.
This started a while ago. I mean, Rikishi, we get him in another show. Rikishi used to do it, and
I think he's been on every show so far.
He has.
We've had Rikishi.
We might try to get him on all of them, but also, I know you remember old White Sox Steven Richards, right? He called the super kick the Steven kick or the Stevie kick or something like that, and all it was a fucking super kick. So,
but at least that was his finisher, though.
Right, and it didn't get anything over. He never pinned anybody above a jobber with it because it was old White Sox, but yeah, he used it. But going back to the DDT, even like we've had variations of it. You see Dean Ambrose use it now, and they've been working that thing. They've been getting him one. He hits it once, and it's a finisher. They've been trying to bulk it back.
He won the title with it, and he won the triple threat with it.
Mick Foley did the double arm DDT as like more of a signature type move, not as a finisher, but they've done variations of it. So it's almost like there's a lack of moves, and everything is circular in the wrestling world, and it comes back around. And now we're back to the super kick again, and even Kevin Owens is doing it. Everybody's doing a version of it now.
The Usos, that gets on my nerves. It's no longer a finisher; it's a setup to a finisher now, almost.
But yet Dolph can get a pin off of it though, because he's Dolph.
Because they're trying to build him like HBK, which he's no HBK. Sorry, Dolph.
Back to the circulation of moves. Why has the Famouser come back around and only been used by a guy like Dolph when Billy's the only one to really do it?
Well, he doesn't get a pin hardly ever with it.
It just doesn't.
He gets his pins off of the zigzag.
But Billy used to use it as a finisher and get pins and tag matches with it, so that demeans it now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not arguing that point with you.
Good, because you're wrong.
Jesus. You just need to sit back, calm down.
Let me get my beer.
And let's talk like adults right now. I was just going to bring up the John Cena middle rope springboard stunner that he does.
The backpack stunner.
Yeah, that's something that Stone Cold really went off on because people are kicking out to his move.
I wouldn't say that Cena does it anymore. He only did it a handful of times. And it was when he was in a time of trying to add to his repertoire. That was around the Kevin Owens invasion time, right? When Owens came in.
Yeah, and he was putting on some amazing matches.
And
yeah,
him and KO put on 2 or 3 they were awesome matches.
KO got that first win. That's really the only match that they talk about during that feud, is that he beat John Cena in his very first match.
Right.
Like, they forget that Cena went on to win 2 other matches, which is good. Like, that's the problem with, you know, a lot of the internet pundits or the comment section, you know, warriors, is that, yeah, Kevin Owens got a win on Cena. Leave it at that. Who cares that Cena won the next 2 matches? That has done nothing to bury Kevin Owens. They like to say anytime someone loses, they get buried.
Oh yeah, they overuse the word bury.
Yeah. They talk about Triple H and his golden shovel. He's put more people over at WrestleMania than anyone else.
Yeah, he's allowed to put down a couple people a rung or two just by the amount of people he's put over the top. So, like I said, it's hard for me to take finishers and put them in a list of rankings of this one was the best or this one was this or I like this one, because for me, finishers are based around the guys that I liked and the matches that they won them with. So for me, I'm not the biggest Shawn Michaels fan like you are, so you know the super kick wouldn't be at the top of my list. But I also take it from a generational perspective, because people used to never kick out of Hogan's atomic leg drop, right? Because nobody beat Hogan for one. But when he dropped the leg drop on people, it was over. Same thing with Jake Roberts' DDT and Stone Cold Steve Austin's stunner for the longest time throughout the Attitude Era. And the only time people were kicking out of it was like The Rock did at WrestleMania 15. So we come to points like now, like we've been talking about, where finishing moves aren't finishing moves anymore. You have to literally hit them twice or 3 times in a match in big event matches, and even on smaller matches on regular TV tapings. Like, finishers aren't always getting over and getting you the win, and it's a little bit frustrating because guys that are legends in the wrestling industry, they kind of rely on having that signature move as their one piece of work in the ring that gets them a victory. But when it's constantly kicked out of for the point of extending a match or getting the crowd to pop again, I think it loses a bit of its value over time.
Yeah, and then when you have these guys who have, you know, for them, their character, that's their finisher, and you can't get it over as a legitimate finisher, that does more to kind of take away someone's credibility than really the booking itself can, because you have guys who will, you know, do their finisher and it won't finish off anybody. So at that point, the fans can't take that guy seriously anymore. It's like, why? Okay, he hit his finisher. I know that next person's going to kick out of it. So why should I invest into this person when clearly he's not going to win?
Right. Same thing with hitting your big finisher at a point like somewhat early in the match, or even late in the match, and you know now, especially over the last 10 years or so, that there's not going to be a 3 count after this because the match hasn't been long enough, or it hasn't been good enough, or we haven't seen enough spots. Because, not to call things spot fest now, but there has to be a certain amount of spots in high profile matches for them to go anywhere, or for them to be any good now, because that's what we expect, and it's a bit of a shame. But you go back to Attitude Era, and even before that, things like the pedigree and the tombstone and the stunner were things that you never kicked out of. 3 that I could think of at least.
Yeah, and then, you know, that's going back to the pedigree. You know, Triple H would hit that once at the end of the match, like, and you knew that match was over. You go back to his WrestleMania match with Booker T, and a lot of people complained because he hit the pedigree once, and that was it. Booker T didn't kick out of it. Well, he got hit with the finisher. I mean, he probably shouldn't have kicked out. Now, I understand that, you know, I don't like when someone hits a finisher and then 5 minutes later, you know, they crawl to the person and pin them, right, and the match is over. But that also adds to the power of that finisher, that, you know, the person had time to hit it, you know, crawl to you, you know, 15, 20 seconds later, finally pin you, and you're still out. That is the definition of a finisher.
And even now, guys, especially in this generation now, they have, there's 2 or 3 finishing moves that they have. Roman does both the Superman punch and the spear, and I know you're a big Roman Reigns guy, so we can talk about him if you want.
Yes, yeah, let's do that.
He has a handful of big moves, but they still.
But they're over. He hits them and the match is over. At least
he hits one spear, yeah.
Even his Superman punch, he hits the Superman punch and he's the U.S. champion. Like, at least when he hits a finisher, it's over.
I blame us as fans mostly for this because as we've gone on through years, we've expected more out of the wrestlers in the ring and of the product and the entertainment value. So we don't want the match to end, especially if it's a great one. We want somebody to take that finisher and kick out. So like you said, at WrestleMania 25, when Shawn Michaels kicked out of the Tombstone, the match was long enough, there had been enough spots, it had been a very good match up to that point. He hit the Tombstone, and my God, and JR, has his out-of-body experience, as we've said. One of the greatest lines.
JR is by far the best of all time. GOAT, by far.
And he kicks out, and we loved it, right? And
yeah.
we probably could have accepted that match if he would have kicked out, but he didn't. And it takes 2 Tombstones to beat him in both WrestleMania matches that they have. It's really our fault. So we're complaining about it, but yet I want to see somebody kick out of certain finishers, at least, especially in high-profile matches like WrestleManias, like major pay-per-views or for titles, because it adds to the greatness of that match.
Yeah, and we talked about that, and we kind of gave a pass to big-time matches, pay-per-view matches. Those you kind of have a little more leeway with that, but I'm talking about like on Raw and SmackDown, just some regular thrown together Sami Zayn versus Sheamus, as an example. They put on matches like it's a regular indie show, and you have, Sami Zayn giving 4 Helluva kicks, all getting kicked out of, and I'm being hypothetical here, but that's how it is on Raw and SmackDown. And Raw and SmackDown should just be, you do your match, you hit your finisher, whoever's supposed to go over goes over, and then their pay-per-view match. That's where you have kind of the multiple kickouts. You don't, and that's one of the problems I have with the product now, is that they give away everything before the pay-per-view. They're like, okay, we're gonna have Rusev versus Roman Reigns for the U.S. title. They're gonna go in a program with each other. You know what? Let's just put that match right now on Raw. That's just that's what made the product so good back then, is that there was more build-up. Like, it's hard to invest in these feuds now when you're given the match and they put on a 20-30 minute match on a Raw instead of saving it for the pay-per-view. Like, put Rusev in a few put Rusev in a few squash matches. Same with Roman. Build them up, make them interfere with each other, and then you have them at the pay-per-view. And I feel like that ties into finishers, because you have the finisher of the feud, which is supposed to be the pay-per-view match. That's supposed to be what ends the feud, but it doesn't anymore. And you have feuds that last 2 to 3 weeks, or last up until the next pay-per-view, and that's it.
Right, that's another good point. Where are the long-term feuds that we used to love that tie in over years against each other?
We just got done our first review. We talked about Backlash 2000. You had Jericho versus Benoit. Benoit going over, retaining the title. Almost an entire year later, they're wrestling again at the Royal Rumble 2001 for the Intercontinental title. The same dynamic, where you have a face Jericho versus a heel Benoit, and it was a great match. And you got invested into it because these guys have been kind of, going at it off and on for a year. It made the match more important.
Right. Then, though, I'd say there was a lot less talent, because the rosters now, there's so many guys that we want to see get a chance, And we complain so much about guys like Cesaro not getting the right push, or Rusev not getting the right push when he should have, things like that, because there's so much damn talent. But back then, it was Benoit and it was Jericho, and they were running the upper mid-card of the entire WWE. So you almost had to put them in these long-term feuds where they could keep going back to it when they ran out of people or they ran out of usable storyline. But now there's just too much too many things going on, and there's also a 3-hour
Yeah.
Raw.
Well, that's another issue for another discussion. But you can have more. You have 3 hours to play with. You can have more story building in 3 hours. You can have more matches put together. I like what they're doing with these squash matches now. Bayley's been having squash matches
Love squash
on Raw.
matches.
Yes, and I'm glad that they brought them back, because now you're not, jobbing out some of your better talent, some of the talent that you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on, and so those guys that maybe, like you said, there is a huge influx of talent now. Put them in non-title feuds. That's what gets people invested. Put them in feuds with other talent, and you don't have to bury one over the other. Sure, one person will win that feud, but there's ways to book it to where the person who loses doesn't look bad in losing. They just lose a match, on to the next feud. There's ways to build around it. I'm not gonna give them a pass. Oh, there's so much talent, so you can only push so many people. You can push people. You can push a good amount of people, make them main eventers without clogging up the title pictures. There's ways around it. That's what I'm getting at. And I'm ranting right now because damn it, Vince,
it's a good rant for damn it, Vince.
Yeah.
The perfect example of this is exactly what you're saying is Sami Zayn, right? Because he beats Kevin Owens clean, and a month and a half later, Kevin Owens is the Universal Champion, and Sami Zayn is struggling to get on TV, and he's doing what do they call them?
And he's losing to Jericho in a pay-per-view with no build to it.
Right, and so that's what they're doing now. It's lazy booking, and again, this is a great rant to have, but
it has nothing to do with finishers.
It does not. We're going to bring this one up on another conversation. I wanted to ask you this when you were talking about matches, because I think finishers now are used as nothing more than enablers and extensions to get the match to go longer. So would you be okay if you saw a decent match on a pay-per-view, non-title match, for example, and there was one finisher performed by the guy who wins? He hits it at the end and he gets a cover. Or do you need the finisher by either one of those people and a kick out at two multiple times to call a match great? Because I don't throw the word great around for matches very often. There's only a handful of them that are great for me. So would you be okay with a match like that?
Yeah, and I would, and here is my criteria for that. You have, two people, having a very solid match. Each person gets in a good amount of offense. You don't need to have a finisher to make you feel like that person almost won. Like you have, like we talked about, people have multiple, signature moves. Like when Dolph, he hits the zigzag. He's not going to get the pin on the zigzag, but it's a big move. It's one of his signature moves, and you kind of get that feeling, oh, this could be it. He could get the pin.
Okay.
And of course, the kick out at 2, no big deal. You weren't really expecting them to get the pin on that. But when, one person does, after, let's say 20 minutes, which is a long match. They have 20 minutes. They put on a really solid show, both getting a lot of offense, and then one person hits their finisher. It's okay for that to end the match because you're left thinking, okay, that person won. The person hits their finisher and that should be it. And you're left thinking that was a really good match. But of course, nowadays we're so conditioned to think, oh wow, they buried that person because they got hit with the finisher once and that was the end of the match.
Yeah.
But in reality, they got in plenty of offense, they looked good doing it, and then the other person hit the finisher. Okay, big deal. They lost the match. Losing a match is not a death knell like some people think.
Okay. I counter that by saying I think it's extremely hard.
Don't you counter my points?
Oh, I'm going to counter this, and it's going to come in the form of a question, though. I think it's extremely hard now to put on a very good or near great match, a one-on-one match, without using multiple finishers unless you're in some type of, we'll call them gimmick matches where there's tables involved, there's a ladder, there's weapons that you can use as enablers. If you're talking, you're going to go a 20-minute match one-on-one and it's, a normal match with DQ rules in place and all that stuff, and you can't use weapons, how can somebody now put on a great match? How can they even try to put on a great match without doing multiple late kickouts and things like that off of finishers?
Well, like we said, nowadays fans are conditioned to think that you're supposed to kick out of a finisher at least once, which is something that is because of booking nowadays and the influx of, all these indie wrestlers. Because on the indie scene, there a lot of these people are wrestling for years and years, and the way that they, are taught, like, they're not on TV. They're just wrestling in front of 200 people, if that much, at these shows, and they're told they need to put on the best match that they can. And yeah, it builds a lot of drama when you kick out of a finishing move, but not in the WWE, not in one of these mainstream promotions, right, where you're supposed to there's some storytelling that okay. I'm glad I used the word storytelling, because if you build a match properly, you have good, some of the best ring generals like Kurt Angle, could wrestle for 15-20 minutes and hit one finisher, and that's it, and you're left thinking, man, that was a really good match.
Right.
Like with Angle, he hits the Olympic slam, or the Angle slam it's called, gets the pin, you're like, okay, that was a great match. Or if he slaps on the ankle lock, and I want to talk about submission.
I was going to ask you that soon as well. We'll get to that.
Yeah, but these guys are so conditioned for years and they're told, you need to build as much drama, you need to, get the crowd as hype as you can, and the only way that they could think to do that was to kick out of finishing moves. Nothing builds more drama in a match than hitting a finishing move and then the person kicks out of it.
Right.
However, when you do that so often as they're doing now, it takes away from the finishing move. They hit the finishing move, and we're conditioned to think the match isn't over, so we don't get that emotional, like, oh my god, Cena just hit the AA, the match is over.
Yeah.
Oh no, AJ Styles kicked out of it, of course.
Right.
So we don't have that emotional attachment to finishing moves anymore.
Not at all, because it takes at least 2 or 3, and even if a guy kicks out of the third one, that's when you're like, oh my god, he kicked out of it, but it took 3 of them for me to get this excited about it, instead of kicking out of one Stone Cold Stunner back in the day. That would have made people lose their mind.
Hold on, I got another point to make. Yeah, what made some of these matches back in the late 80s, early 90s such classics, like when Ultimate Warrior went up against Randy Savage in a title versus career match.
Oh, the elbow drop scene.
Yeah, and he just kept hitting him with elbow drops.
7 times.
Warrior would just kick out. And then something like that builds drama, because it's like, this is his, because there, Warrior, you have the feeling, okay, Warrior is doing everything he can to keep that title, and Savage is doing everything he can to keep his career alive. So on a big stage like that creates plenty of drama, and you can do that in a match like that. And so that's kind of where I'll draw the line.
Yeah, the storytelling was way different back then as opposed to what you'd see now in the chemistry in a ring. But nevertheless, right. I agree. But I want to get to this. I want to talk about submissions, and I want to ask, do you think that wrestlers who use submission moves specifically as finishers, like Walls of Jericho and things like that, are they at some type of disadvantage because there's no 3 count? So how is it that you use their move as a way of extending a match when there's not a kick out involved?
And well, that's another thing where, if let's say Chris Jericho slaps someone into the Walls of Jericho, we're talking about like a Monday Night Raw, then that should get a tap out. Right. Now, people think that if someone taps out to a submission move, then they're somehow buried. Like that ultimate burial is having someone tap, which I think is asinine. But there is a great way to build drama using a submission move, and if it's a no DQ match, you have the ropes there. You don't
Right.
need the 3 count. You don't need the kick out at 2. Someone just showing their grit and determination. Trying to get to the ropes, just crawling, dragging, scratching at the canvas, trying to get to that rope, and then either getting to it and breaking up the count, or what I love, especially in like a big match, is when they get so close to the rope and then the guy's just like, nope, and then just brings them back to the middle of the ring.
Right back into the middle.
And then they have to do it all over again. The crowd is on the edge of their seat.
Right. Like screaming at them to tap, 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 and then they don't tap. I completely agree that tapping out, it has been seen as a weakness. Like it buries guys if you tap out, but please God, don't forget that Shawn Michaels tapped out at a WrestleMania. So just get that out of your heads right now.
And so did Batista to Daniel Bryan. And
Dave?
I'm telling you, and if he ever came back, he's not going to be any less of a main event guy because he tapped out to the Yes Lock at WrestleMania. As much shit as I give Michael Cole, his call on that match is one of my favorites of all time, when he's yelling for Batista to tap.
Yeah.
And so you can have that kind of drama even with a submission finishing move.
And that is one of the better finishings at a WrestleMania, is waiting for a guy to tap out, just like when Chris Benoit got his tap out. There's such great moments that you're just sitting there waiting because you don't know when it's going to happen. You know when a 3 count's going to happen and you can anticipate it, but when a guy's sitting there struggling, not knowing if he's going to tap out or not, and then he finally does, it's a much different feeling. But yeah, so let's talk about some specific finishing moves that we've liked over the years. Okay. We'll come back to submission ones in a second, but you've mentioned the super kick.
Okay, so you're just talking about regular finishing moves now.
Yeah,
impact moves.
Is the super kick your number one mark out for it every time finisher?
No, it's not. As much as I love it, and one of my top 3 of all time, HBK, that was his finisher, the Sweet Chin Music, and anytime he used it, I loved it, especially when he kicked Stan in the back. That was amazing. Anyway, probably one of my favorite finishers is I love the power bomb. I loved Taker's Last Ride power bomb. That's one of my all-time favorites. And I like finishing moves that look like they really finish you. Like the power bomb, okay. Like the choke slam. I love the choke slam. That's one of my favorites because it's a high impact. It's a move that when someone hits it on you, you can suspend disbelief for just a little bit, and you go, okay, I could see that move finished them off. And you have moves and then you also have finishing moves that are so protected, like Brock Lesnar's F5, Taker's Tombstone. I like moves that they protected and actually made to look like finishing moves.
Right.
Except Hogan's leg drop. I hated that. There's no way you can convince me that dropping a leg, no matter how big that leg is on someone, would not come out.
Oh, clearly you weren't around in the mid to late 80s. Ooh.
I know full well the devastation that the atomic leg drop has caused an entire generation, but I'm not a big fan of it. Not a fan of the elbow drop either, because that's not a move that. Yeah, any kind of elbow drop. To me, that's just a move that it's a flashy move. It's cool, but it's not, to me, a high impact finishing move. However, I do think the frog splash is a better finishing move than the elbow drop. Now, I may get some flack for that one, especially a lot of Macho Man fans out there, but the Eddie Guerrero, the RVD frog splashes are phenomenal, and I think a great finishing move.
Talk about another move that's been used by every single person since then as well.
Once again, Kevin Owens.
It's a bullfrog splash, though. It's a bullfrog.
It's still, you could call it the frog splash, the 5-star frog splash, the bull frog splash. I don't care. It's still a frog splash.
Yeah.
And it's a finisher. It's not freaking. It's not even a signature move of his. He just does it.
Yeah, he just does it at random times.
All of his regular moves are just other people's finishing moves.
I loved RVD's
Kills
version
me.
just because of the height that he'd get, because he's such an athletic dude. Because he would jump so high off the top of the turnbuckle and connect, and then when his body would hit, he'd bounce so far off their bodies. he'd sell. Great sell.
And his stomach was always in so much pain when he hit the frog splash.
Yeah, and I liked Eddie's too because Eddie did his so quick. It wasn't a whole lot of height. He did jump off the cage obviously before, but I mean, he did it so quickly and it had such a quick impact that it was just nice
But with
to watch.
Eddie's, yeah, with Eddie's though, when he hit it, because it was so quick, it was devastating. You're like, oh man, that looked like it really hurt. Because a lot of people think of Eddie Guerrero as kind of a small person, but he was a thick dude. Like,
Yeah.
I can imagine that would hurt someone putting all of their weight, their entire body, on just slamming on top of you from the top rope. That, to me, and like you said, the 5-star frog splash was great, and I loved when Eddie and RVD feuded, and it was the Battle of the Frog Splashes. I really enjoyed that. I believe RVD went over. I don't remember. That was back in like 3.
Back in the
That was a
day.
long time. Yeah, when I would not miss a single Raw, because as much as I hated Triple H, he's the best heel that I think we've had in an entire generation. Because I watched every week just to watch him lose.
Just to hate
And
him because you hated him?
Yes, and I rooted the shit out of the faces. Anyone who went up against Triple H, I was emotionally invested in because I just wanted him to lose.
He was champion for a long time back then too, so it made it also a little easier because you always wanted your guy to get the title from him.
Yeah, I was because he RVD actually feuded with Triple H over the title, and I was
remember that.
really invested into that. Once again, that's a damn it Vince moment, and we'll get into booking another time. Talking about
Right.
finishers here.
Yeah, I've
Damn it,
never
Ken.
been
Stay on
into
top.
I've never been into turnbuckle finishers or jumping finishers so much. I'd like the frog splash. It's really the only one that I did like.
So what about Jeff Hardy's Swanton?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I mean, I'm not putting it on any list because that move was exciting to watch. It definitely got better over the years too. I've always been one for a bit of the flash of finishers. That's why the most electrifying move in sports entertainment, though it doesn't look like it hurts anybody at all, it is still the way that it, especially as a child, the way that it brought me out of my seat just to watch him jump over a guy, kick his leg and shake his leg and then drop an elbow. From an entertainment standpoint, that's the one that I always like to watch, and because I'm a Rock guy, so I'm a little biased saying that.
But the setup to that was great because he would hit the spine buster and he would pop up faster than I've ever seen someone. His explosiveness was through the roof, and the setup more than anything, he would hit his signature in the spine buster, and then as soon as he popped up, you knew
Yep.
people's elbow was coming, and the way they booked it, the way they made it, they protected it. He would hit it, and he would get the pin on it. And Triple H was one of the best at selling the people's elbow. He would stay down for minutes after getting hit with a people's elbow.
Not a lot of kickouts after the elbow because of who The Rock was and the setup that they had to his matches usually. Same way with the Tombstone. It's been one of those that rarely gets kicked out of, except for at WrestleManias usually.
Yeah, and and another thing is that the look on, like anytime someone would kick out of the Tombstone, just the look on Taker's face, like the look of disbelief, going back to that out of body moment that JR had with HBK, like the look, what made it so just emotionally drawing is that, you know, you see the disbelief in Taker's face because he's like, that is supposed to finish someone. Any other mortal man I would have finished this match, but right now HBK is not a mortal man.
And I think they really...
The only reason for that is because of how powerful the Tombstone was.
Right. I think they protected that move the longest of any finisher ever because he used it, you know, right when he started coming in and when the WrestleMania streak started and all that. Nobody kicked out of it. Like, I think Kane kicked out of it during their feud in 97 and 98. And aside from that, it went years where it was the move, and they kept protecting it for years and years, and then he didn't use it a whole lot as the biker taker. That was when they did the last ride more, and they really saved it for huge match moments so that it drew that emotion from the Undertaker, because he's not used to having to do it twice.
Yeah, and which is why, bringing this back full circle is why having a strong finisher and not having someone kick out of it so many times, that adds to the overall drama of the match and the feud at the time, because and we seem to keep hitting on this HBK Taker match, and mostly because it's one of the best of all time. Yeah, but someone hits their finisher, you expect it to be over, and at a match like pay-per-view, and I'm starting to come around on my thinking about kicking out of it even at pay-per-views as we're talking, because what makes it so emotional is when a person, you hit your finisher and you kick out of it, like that's showing that not only are you giving it your all, but your opponent is also digging deep and trying to find that last ounce of strength that they can to kick out of it, when for a fact that he's not supposed to kick out of it.
Right.
And when you feel like someone's not supposed to kick out of it and they kick out of it, that's what makes it so dramatic. Not always constantly kicking out of it. That takes away from it.
And what I see for coming in the future is, I brought up Dean Ambrose, and he's been getting the win on his matches using Dirty Deeds, right? And he's only been hitting it once. So they're building up the move to make it be a true finisher. But all that's going to lead to is down the road in a high-profile match, he's going to hit it, and
Seth Rollins is going to kick out of it.
Exactly. It won't be Rollins per se, because I think he'll still be on Raw, but someone on SmackDown, or for the title maybe, AJ Styles down the road is going to kick out of it, and it hasn't been kicked out of for a year, say, for example, and it's just going to be that huge pop where it's not supposed to happen, but he did, and we're going to come back. I mean, it's all going to come full circle again, where finishing moves don't finish a match. I see that happening.
What I think is going to happen is that you build that finisher. Let's stick with the Dirty Deeds. You build that to be a strong finisher. He hits it. It's 1, 2, 3, match over 9 times out of 10. As soon as he hits it, you're going to see the crowd. Once they start to realize, okay, this is a legit finisher. Once he hits it, the match is over. And he's so over as a face right now. As soon as he hits it, they know he's going to get the pin. They're gonna pop for that. Just like anytime Stone Cold hit the stunner, they pop for it because they knew he was going to win. Just because someone is about to win when they hit a finisher, that doesn't somehow magically take away from the match.
No, it doesn't.
In my opinion.
In booking soon, they're going to use that to their advantage, and they're going to suck the crowd in, thinking, oh, here it is, 1, 2, 3, and they're going to get that kick out, and it's going to just be a huge, oh my God, and it'll be a huge kick out, one we remember forever, because Dirty Deeds hasn't been kicked out of in a year or whatever. But
tell me what's wrong with that.
Nothing's wrong with it, but it's definitely circular, and you can kind of see the writing on the walls when you see WWE writing and how they book matches.
But I think that's something that they should definitely do, is just start building those finishers to actually do what they're called to do, and that's finish a match. And you're going to see the fans still being invested in it. And you can have an AJ Styles, or you have a big feud, like either a main event feud, or even they're building up those mid-card titles to be pretty big right now, and you can have someone later on down the road kick out of it. Eventually someone's going to get out of Rusev's accolade, but until then, you just need to keep booking it as the end-all, be-all.
Well said. Now tell me your favorite submission moves.
Okay, favorite submission moves. I've got 3, and that's the Bret Hart sharpshooter, Dean Malenko's cloverleaf,
yes,
and Daniel Bryan's yes lock.
So I'm just gonna assume that it's bias for the Daniel Bryan one. We'll just leave that one alone.
Watch WrestleMania 30 and you tell me.
I've seen it. Okay, the Cloverleaf.
I've seen it many times.
Great example of the man of a billion holds, Dean Malenko. Why the Cloverleaf?
Really, I just like the way it looked. It looked painful the way he did it, and it looked cool. It's something that, you know, when you're growing up, you see it, you want to emulate it, because it's not like the sharpshooter where you stick your leg through and you put the other person's legs around. He just kind of puts your he puts your ankle behind your knee and just twists you back, and it just looks really painful when he does it.
Do you like Sheamus's version then? It's the same thing.
It is the same thing, and I still like it. And Sheamus can make it look even more powerful, because he can, you know, use his strength to lift you up and
huge.
spin you. Yeah. So if he started to actually use that as a legit finisher, then I think it would rival Dean Malenko's, just because of his sheer strength.
It's always good to get a Dean Malenko reference in the show here. It's always good.
Yeah, I think we've done that twice so far. I like
hope
it.
So yeah, it's the Scotty 2 Hottie match. Yeah.
And then the sharpshooter, they protected that move so well. And then when you have, okay, let's talk about this for a second. His match with Stone Cold, where, you know where I'm getting at. Where,
yes, WrestleMania.
Yeah. Yep. And Stone Cold, you know, he tries to get out of it. He fights and claws his way out of it. People thinking he's going to tap, and he passed out. It's okay
to pass out.
Yeah.
All that did was build up Stone Cold even more.
Yeah, and you see, he lost the match, but he became an even bigger star afterwards. Like, someone can lose and still become a bigger star afterwards.
Every time I think of him and the sharpshooter, I only think of Montreal, though. I can't picture him winning a title with it. I can't picture him putting it on Owen. I don't even picture him doing it to Steve and there being blood. I only picture
Well, what about
Montreal.
When he put it in on Mr. Perfect to win the IC title? That was one of the most brutal looking.
That's a good match, too.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so all great examples, but even now, even when The Rock would do the sharpshooter, even when Natty does the sharpshooter now, like, I just instantly think, oh, there's Montreal coming back around again, because it's one of the greatest, and this will be talked about when we talk storyline, I'm sure. So, in booking, the decision there of old Vince McMahon.
Forget LeBron James. That was the decision right there.
And then a year later, he did it to Mankind when The Rock had him in the sharpshooter at Survivor Series.
Yeah. Oh. Yes. Damn it, Vince. You can't leave well enough alone.
Get out of the storyline.
Yeah. You don't need to be a part of every major storyline. The people don't care that much about you.
He is the greatest heel ever, so maybe that's
why. Absolutely. Yeah, and I agree with that. He is. If you want to learn more about the decision and the impact it had, watch Wrestling with Shadows, the story about Bret Hart. That documentary that followed him throughout that year that led up to the Montreal Screwjob. And just the belief that Bret Hart had that everything was playing out, you know, everything was going to work out the way that he wanted. But honestly, you know, I agree with the decision that Vince made.
Oh, so do I.
Because your job when you're going out and you're leaving the company is to go out putting someone over. Whoever they want to put over, that's who you're supposed to put over.
I wish that it could have gone another way, but in Vince's eyes, I'm almost certain that he thought he had no other choice but to do it like that. And it's sad that it came to that, but I mean, it's something we'll always remember now.
Yeah, and it's something that, you know, Bret Hart famously says that he did not want to drop the title to Shawn. And that's the only person that Vince wanted the title to be put on. But Vince has shown that he's willing to, you know, change things up. He's done it to where, because he wanted Stone Cold to drop the title to Triple H, and Stone Cold refused and instead dropped it to Mankind, only for Triple H to win it the next night.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Bret, he had other options, but Bret kind of put himself in that corner.
Bret also didn't want to lose in Canada either, so it's a little bit of...
Which is... Okay, so okay, I'm the champ. I don't want to lose in America.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not defending Brett on this one. I'm saying he had a lot of reasons why he refused to work the match as they had discussed. But man, I'm gonna go watch that now. We got a way off topic there.
We did.
Write all this stuff down, folks. Write it down.
Yeah, because I haven't, and I have no idea where we came from.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this topic conversation of ours, number 2 in the line of many more to come. This is a discussion about our favorite finishers, to include submission finishers. Hope you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe, like our stuff, comment on it. Let us know if we're wrong, if we're right. Let us know some of your favorite finishers as well. I appreciate you listening. Once again, this has been the Collar Noble Wrestling Podcast. Ken, say goodbye to the folks.
Thanks, Chris. It's been great talking pro wrestling with you. Like you said, like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment letting us know what paper reviews you might want us to do in the future, what other topics just like this one you want us to talk about. And as always, we do this for the love of wrestling, and together we can make wrestling great again.